Now let's talk just a little bit about then how do we think about how do we provide supports and interventions for students around what those areas that they need. And so there are ways that we can do that. And so for instance, the one here titled The Claw, those would be an intervention and support. This one could be considered a multisensory tool. And you could use this, it refers to the claw, and the students can hold their hand up. Sometimes they use a glove. Sometimes teachers use dots. And so you could even teach that lesson using dots. But your topic is going to be your thumb. Then you're going to have a reason, detail, or fact, depending on the type of writing that you're doing. And then there would be another reason, detail, or fact, and then another reason, detail, or fact, and then you have the conclusion. And we teach kids to bring that back together, that topic and that conclusion are back connected. So I'm using a visual and I'm using a kinesthetic activity to support that. So if I have a kid who is having trouble with remembering those pieces, then they can use that tactile way of being able to recall that, or I can have that visual. I can use that. Like I said, teachers have used that and have a glove and they just color those dots, or they use those little dot stickers. But you can imagine that opportunity for kids to have that support. So that could be considered a scaffold for helping them with those pieces of writing, even at the middle and high school level. We're talking about specially designed instruction and how we use graphic organizers, or we use mnemonics, or we use all these tools and resources to help support our students. And then we look at like that graphic organizer there for writing, for the POW and tree. Well, that, if we use that POW, that helps kids keep on focus. So pick my idea, and they organize my notes, and then write, and then say more. And then you have tree, and that's the paragraph version. So tell us what you think, give us 3 reasons, end it up, and then you go back and have them examine it. Do I have all of these things? Here you could use a checklist. If you had kids working on developing a good paragraph, then you could have a checklist, and kids could go back and they do their own examination of that. Do I have all the parts that are necessary for this writing piece? Let's take a look at this one. This one is called Raft. And this one's just an example. I mean, there are so many ones that you can use. But if we provide students with a raft writing template, then how do we use those tools for students to organize their thinking? And so if you see this example on the screen, this raft template, raft stands for role, audience, format, and topic. So we have students thinking and answering those questions before they ever start that writing process. So we may use a graphic organizer in the writing process when we're actually teaching kids to move through that process. So there are tools and resources for all of those areas that we're talking about in that needs in the error analysis, that we can teach kids those specific skills. So if you look at an example over on the right is this was the prompt. If you were and this one came from the Reading Rockets, and then you'll see Fisher and Fry. This is an example that Fisher and Fry use over on the right using that raft. But it gives the prompt, and then you have the student then do the writing. But you can see the underlined pieces of this particular writing represent what those the R, A, F, and T are in the raft strategy. So it may be that you teach kids, and you may have to teach a series of mini lessons to get kids to be able to use a tool like this. But I'm gonna give you 1 minute to kind of just look at this screen and think about the graphic organizer and the use of those tools. A student could use that graphic organizer, and then you could turn that graphic organizer into a checklist, right? So kids could self-monitor. Did they have the role? Then have them go back and underline what their role is. Who is it that they're writing to? Who is it that is their audience? What is their role? He's talking, what is that from the writing perspective? What format are you going to use? Are you using a 5-paragraph model? And then what is the topic? And then they can use that to assess, did they remain on topic throughout the writing piece? So that's just an example of an older student. Again, on the left is back to those Reading Rockets. And then the one on the right is an example that came from some work of Fisher and Fry. And we can take those pieces and then see what students need, and then be able to align the appropriate tools and resources to help those students as we narrow down what that skill deficit might be. Depending on what your purpose is, that you can select graphic organizers to help really guide the thinking of our kids. And they can check their own work this way. It gives them some tools to do that. You could even create your own rubric, 1, 2, 3, 4, on did they identify their role, do they have the audience, do they have the format, do they have the topic. So they could have a general rubric that they could use to match their writing text, their writing pieces, or they could have a checklist or whatever it is that you wanted to use. But if that's what you were working on and that was your SDI, then you could match that with what that kid's goal is. And so everything matches then. The area of need, the goal, the short-term objectives, and then your SDI, and then your progress monitoring tool. So it really all works together collectively.